Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rich Batts. I'm doing a screencast for my inquiry activity, the kind of reaction video. So to start off, through my attempt 1, I decided to kind of go about it the way that they discussed in the engineering encounters, the engineering a model of the Earth as a water filter journal article that we read. So they talked about having the gravel at the bottom in the last cup, and then kind of the sand and charcoal maybe mix a little bit in order to have it, and then I used the cheesecloth as my top layer to kind of filter out all the solids. So these are just two images that I took kind of representing what's going on with them. My second attempt, or my first attempt still, I'm sorry, this is a zoom in of the lower level as it was filtering through. As you can see, it didn't get very clean going into the gravel, and then from the gravel not a whole lot dripped through. At the end, when I did get through to it, there wasn't a ton in there, but it was much more clear than it originally started. Not a whole lot, but still a little bit more clear. So then I started to think about kind of ways to adjust it. So from there, my second attempt, what I decided to do was kind of make the top layer a little more layers to filter through. So now I added the mesh along with a coffee filter for that top layer to ensure that none of the solids would get through, because I thought that maybe some of the solids were clogging up the holes that I poked at the bottom of the containers. So then I felt like the coffee filter along with the mesh and the cheesecloth would kind of filter those out. So that was my top layer cup. My second layer, I added the alum. As you stated in our one discussion, that it should go first. After watching those videos, I felt like the water can mix in with it and kind of have that reaction as it's passing down through the next layers. My next layer after that, again, I used the charcoal and the sand, combined the both of them. However, I used more charcoal, less sand in this scenario, kind of seeing if that would make a different role for it. As the reading said in the Encountering Engineers, one of the students noticed that they feel the sand makes it more dirty. They feel like it makes it more of a chalky type. So I decided to try with more charcoal, less sand this time. And then last but not least, again, I kept my gravel kind of at the bottom of the tower and went through it that way. So here's my tower fully constructed. It did not stay standing, so I did have to prop it up against the wall. However, you can kind of see how it goes through here. Yes, I did have my dirty water in a ice cream container. I had to eat that whole gallon of ice cream just to do this experiment. Totally kidding, but I would definitely eat a gallon of ice cream. But anyway, I had to prop it up against the wall. As the water filtered through, you can kind of see the difference between these two layers and the clarity as well. Obviously in here is much darker. Also, you can't really see it in there. So that second attempt was a little bit better, but again was not as clear as I was hoping. So the third attempt, I was like, maybe I have too many layers. Maybe there's too much separation. Maybe it doesn't have enough time to kind of mix through everything. Obviously, there's not 20-foot layer gaps between the different layers of earth, so I tried to keep it simple. I added them in the same cup, poked a bunch of holes at the bottom. My top of the lid had the cheesecloth mesh, and finally the coffee filter again to kind of get out all those solids, and then it kind of dripped down through. This took a very long time for the water to pass through everything. So what I did was did a time-lapse video, which you can see here, of it dripping through. Here it is from the top. I adjusted it, spilled a little bit, so there's going to be a little puddle next to my cup. But as it's going on, you can see that the water is, a little bit more clear than what it originally started. And here's kind of the final product after the time-lapse video concluded. But it dripped down through, eventually going from the alum to the sand to the charcoal to the gravel. You can see a little bit of sand kind of dripped through the bottom there. But here's the final product of my third attempt, and this was my most clear water. Obviously doesn't look as filtered as nice drinking water, but doesn't look as bad as I originally started with. So kind of getting into the inquiry continuum. I do believe that the first one on that continuum, learners are engaged in scientifically oriented questions. I think that was more teacher guided, just because we were given the problem or the scenario of filtering the water, we weren't able to pose a question and kind of solve it that way. For the second essential feature, learners give priority to evidence, which allows them to develop and evaluate explanations that address scientifically oriented questions. I said that this was very learner self-directed. We kind of decided what data we needed to collect, how we wanted to kind of collect that data, and what we thought was important to test. So in this case, I looked at my water clarity, which, as you can see, wasn't very clear at the end. The third essential feature is that learners formulate explanations from evidence to address scientifically oriented questions. And I said again that this one was learner self-directed, mainly because in the explanation it says learner formulates explanation after summarizing the evidence. So after we see what worked, we kind of explained it. We kind of figured out what was going on. So from my first attempt to my second to my third, I had to think about what I could change in order to kind of make it better or make it work more efficiently. So that was kind of my explanation after summarizing my evidence. My evidence for my first attempt kind of to help me go to my second and third attempt. There was no guidance along that way. My fourth one, learners evaluate their explanations in light of alternative explanations, particularly those reflecting scientific understanding. So again, I said the learner self-directed. We had to, and the students had to, in the engineering encounters reading, had to research the Earth. As it states, Google is their friend. I can say I tried to do it without using Google as much as possible. I did kind of cheat a little bit. But I did want to see kind of where my thought process would go just strictly from trying to construct it. So that was my fourth one, and my fifth, I'm creeping up on the 7-minute mark, so I'm going to wrap this up. Justify their proposal and explanations. As we're explaining it now, the students in the reading had to compare theirs with other students to kind of justify theirs and see which ones work best. So overall, I think this was a very inquiry-based activity. I do believe that our only guidance was with the question that was correlated with it was to create that water filter. So I do think it was very inquiry-based. Oh man, I've been talking for 7 minutes. I'm glad I made a water filter because I am parched. Time to hydrate up and drink this nice clean water that I made. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good day.